What is up, everybody? I'm back. Quite late this time, actually. Nearly 10 whole minutes. How embarrassing. Today I am continuing the Chapter Champion. Firekeeper's Chapter Champion. Gonna try and get this sword looking a bit more completed. As for why I was running late, well, as you can see, I had to get new palette paper, and it is quite a task. It takes quite a lot of effort, and unforeseen circumstances arose. I see Alfarius here in chat trying to take over my stream. Ghostmaker, welcome to the stream. How's it going? How's it going? Is that a new Eldar model in the top? Is there? Where? Which top are you referring to, Ghostmaker? The plan is to paint this guy's sword reminiscent of the Monster Hunter Greatsword Agato. So I got a reference up for myself here. Basically looking at bone colors and some browns. Not the most exciting. Might start with a base coat of Steel Legion and layer up with Screaming Skull. And then maybe we can go downwards to Drywood Bark for the gradient along the blades flat. That's probably what we'll do. So we'll get some Screamin' or some Steel Legion drab first. And let's get intimate with this this model here. Definitely been a minute since I last left this model. It's like I painted the green tones and then I basically left it for probably a year. Something like that. Quite a while anyways. Just cooking in the pile of shame. Yeah, we can see this is pretty thin as far as a base layer goes. I may or may not be joined by some buds, some hobby friends in chat. I was feeling a bit guilty because I've been neglecting the friend calls for gaming on the Monday stream, so I extended an open invitation to them. We'll see. We'll see. Oh, Samus, you mean in the waiting screen, eh, Ghostmaker? Well, no, that is not an updated Eldar model. Though Samus would definitely punk some Eldar, that's for sure. Expert bounty hunter. Anti-Xenos weapons, for sure. Alright, let's try and get my buddy Army here in the call. You know what, let me just message him. We'll probably drop the background music, though. It's just too much to contend with otherwise. Hello. You are live. You are live and on stream, my friend. Hello? Seems like he's having technical difficulties, chat. The suspense is killing me. Let's switch to studio mode. I think I have an OBS preset for the Discord call. Yes, this should work. We'll switch to this one. Oh, he just left. How awkward. How awkward. Well, I'll just be out here all by my lonesome. That's okay. Altheria says call the Tech Marine. Yeah, we're gonna need the Master of the Forge for this one, I think. Well, in any case, we'll continue our base colors. Summon the servitors. Yeah. We'll get some very watered down Steel Legion drab on here. That's what we'll do. Oh, he's back. Might have to give it the old turn it off, turn it on again. Let me switch OBS off of studio mode. Okay, we're going to start mixing in some Screaming Skull. This is separated quite a bit. I have to mute myself while I give this a good old shake. Look at that. With all of my strength, with all of my might mustered, the paint is ready. And we're going to mix in some glazing medium as well, just to make the layers extra smooth. Well, if this is how the call's going to be, I should put my background music back on, I think, until things get sorted out. Until things get sorted out. I'll have to drop the audio a touch. Okay, Altheria says, at with the 40k, do you think when Grey Knights get their codex, they could potentially get a new model range? Or do you think we're stuck with the short boys forever? New model range is possible. What do I think? I suppose if I had to bet, I don't think they're going to get new models. I think if you make new Primaris models, you can sell them to everybody who plays Space Marines, but Grey Knights are a bit too special. So it's kind of like a high investment for a relatively smaller consumer base, is kind of how I would look at it. Now, if they just want Grey Knights to ally in freely like the Inquisition, maybe that changes things a little bit. The rules could always just be in service of whatever they want to push, which, let's be frank, it often tends to be. Yeah, I mean, personally, I would prefer model effort with regards to entire ranges worth of models being produced. I would prefer it for other factions, or other armies. You know, I know the competitive players weren't too hot on the Crute getting so much attention, but I am much more in preference of effort being in places such as that. Give me more weird models. Right, I think, unfortunately, World Eaters, with the way they've constructed things, World Eaters are in dire need of some units. Votan as well. Probably similarly so. Harlequins and Thousand Suns are also pretty thin, but they can probably skate by. I'd like for Thousand Suns to have another unit or two. That isn't just a character, an obligatory character that comes out with the book. It's why Alfaria says, because either Games Workshop continues to make new Firstborn models, which will look cool, but unheard of, or they update the range because they can't have 1 to 2 tall guys that everyone else is short. That's why Crow feels kind of weird. Yep, Crow is definitely awkward in comparison to everybody else. He's a giant. He's a mountain of a man. As for refreshing, I don't know, I think I'm of the mindset we just write it off. It isn't ideal. Like, it certainly isn't ideal. If you were really dead set, you could do some conversion work, some kit bashing work to kind of upsize them all using Primaris bases, but you gotta do it tastefully. You gotta, you know, you don't want them to look Primaris at the end of the day, so it isn't just a drag and drop kit bash project. There's a higher skill floor, I think, but I think it could work if someone's heart was set on it. They could convert a 2 scale, or at least a more consistent scaled Grey Knight's army using the Primaris range as a base. My buddy Melon was talking about, he was considering it for a second there with his Grey Knights collection, just using Phobos base bodies for, I think he said the Inceptor type, the jumpy, the shunting guys. You know, you gotta have the appropriate helmets, backpacks, and war gear. I think that would definitely go a long way in keeping the models looking as if they are Grey Knights and not just Primaris Marines that are silver. But yeah, it's a route that you could go.
Hello. Hey,
Hey,
finally.
you're in. Nice. Okay.
Oh my, every time, man.
I don't know what's up with your
Couldn't hear you, and then the mic wasn't picking up. It just, anyways.
No
Stupid
worries. No worries. We are in the stream. Glad to have your company. Haven't had one of these in a while, so this will be good. Good to get some.
Yeah, video games ruin lives, man.
They can. Okay, I won't fight you on that. They can. But look, sometimes you gotta play a new video game because it's the best. It's so cool, dude. You get to play as a Space Marine. It's literally the dream. Okay. And I won't listen to otherwise.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's terrible.
Yeah.
I like the first one. My computer probably won't run it, so it's just not an option.
True. I definitely get that. It's probably the limit of my computer, if I'm honest with you.
My computer's probably older than yours.
Yeah, you said it was your bro's old gaming computer, right?
Yeah.
Yep, probably. Might look a little Play-Doh-y if you run it. Just might.
Maybe when it's free on Steam in 10 years.
Oh yeah, it'll give it enough time. Those Steam sales you can get some real gems. You know, when Space Marine 3 comes out. I kid, but that's when it'll have the most content and it'll be better.
Well, I got that Vermintide.
Yeah, it's
and I haven't played it yet.
Oh, I'm down, dude. We'll have to organize a time and date with me, you, and Melon to do that, but that'll be fun. Yeah, Space Marine 2 is scaling, I hope, like Vermintide, or at least more so than how Darktide was. So with enough time, it'll be more content rich, and who knows? Maybe you'll have a different computer by then.
Maybe.
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 You never know. I hope the audio levels are okay. Chat can verify that. I was hopping back and forth between my audio settings there because you were in and out for a bit.
Oh yeah, it's my bad.
That's all good. It's bound to happen. I screw up the audio on the regular, to be honest with you. So it's just more likely to now that I've been switching my OBS scenes. Dave McMuffin says, I'm thinking about starting Necrons as my first proper army. I've dabbled in Tyranids, but the rules they had until the last data slate really put me off, and Marines give me indecision paralysis. Necrons aren't a bad choice. There's good starter sets you might be able to find kicking around from the last edition, and they're very hobby friendly if you're new to hobbying and painting and all that.
Yeah, they really are.
Yeah, and if you like Terminator, it's lots of fun, you know? So what do you got on your table there, Army? Kratos?
So, yeah, um, I I'm gonna start with like, so I'm prepping for the Mike Mudd Memorial Tournament,
Same!
and it's well, I didn't know what you'd said. So, and it's Highlander.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it allows legends. So I'm starting with the for sure's. I'm having a lot of like list indecision and such. So like a million thoughts going through my head, right?
Right, because you're still in the
So
list's not locked in yet for a while anyways, right? So what to opt?
yeah, so I'm starting with some. I want to bring a couple legends for sure. So I'm gonna my hobby efforts are gonna go into the Kratos and a Fire Raptor for sure. Number one and two. I've got Shrike here that I'm converting up. I've lopped his head and his shoulder off. I don't know if I should leave his Raven Guard helmet on there, even though I'm putting a new one. What do you think?
I mean, if you're having some fun, like he's a Alpha Legion guy, and you're running Shrike's rules, but in your army he is a you know Alfarius number 14. If it's that kind of tongue-in-cheek
Yeah,
way
yeah.
you're approaching it, I think you can leave it on there. Like maybe that is a Raven Guard helmet, and it's like a trophy. That's kind of cool.
Cool. Done deal. And then, like, I also like to use these events as motivators. So I've got this Repulsor Executioner that's been built and primed for about 4 years. So I don't know. I'm debating against the Spartan, and the Spartan's just a lot of points. And then, like, with the list composition, I'm not really making full use of it because I don't really care about its humongous transport capacity. So I don't know if I'm going to bring it. It's also, yeah, I don't know.
It's also cursed. Is that what you're gonna say?
Uh, no, I've been running it with laser destroyers, so
You think it's
just
better?
fine. Yeah, the strength wounding on 3s versus 4s against tough things. Yeah,
I always
probably
thought
a little
with,
more.
I always thought with sustained it'd be better just to have more volume.
Well,
What do you think?
I'm leaning loyal.
Ah, okay.
I was really trying to get the Deceptors to work, and I just don't like the way they play.
No, I understand.
It, it's
There's
just
things I like.
too
Go ahead.
coin flippy.
Yep.
Just too coin flippy.
Based on if you go first, all that front-loaded value from the detachment rule, right?
The only value, really.
Yeah, yeah,
Couple
that's
okay strats, but
yeah. Strats are probably as good for
fine.
every army. Like they're situationally, different situations. They're worth their weight in gold, right? And sometimes they're just
Yeah.
that circumstance didn't come up. But for a detachment rule, you would hope you'd get some consistent value game to game. And like you said, if you
Yeah,
don't go first, that's a
yeah. If you
problem.
don't win defender, if you don't go first, dog shit. So,
Yeah.
so rather than just like go and be frustrated and have a bad time, I've just opted to run loyal.
No, I get it. No, I get it.
Yeah, I really wanted to make it work,
I
but
mean, the Alpha Legion can go both ways, right? So.
yeah, just the scheming. Like I was just scheming and scheming and scheming, and nothing was jiving. So
The Alpha Legion rule should reward you for scheming.
yeah, like there's no on and off the board,
Oh,
which
no back to reserves, eh?
now back to reserves,
Yeah, missed
which
opportunity for sure.
yeah feels like a bit of a miss.
Yeah, that kind of
So
for sure. What, like you'd have to take what bikers for that?
they don't do that anymore.
Oh, Raptor. No, Warp Talons do it now, right?
Warp Talons do it,
Yeah.
and I've admittedly not been very good at with the Warp Talons. The guy I played on Saturday,
Mm-hmm.
what's his name? Alistair. He's very good with them.
Nice.
He gets his value every game, but I was impressed. I'm like, oh, so that's how they work.
Nice.
I just can't seem to make them work. He's also running Packbound, which
Very good.
Slanesh on fives,
Oh
very good.
yeah, dude, advance and charge, so good, so necessary, so
Mhm.
necessary. Warp Forge, I see you in chat. How's it going? Welcome. Good to see you, Warp Forge.
Fella, can you go away, please? Thanks. Thanks, kitty. You're very annoying. Yeah, very annoying kitty. Yeah. The cat just it's like, oh, you're doing something? Let me bother you.
Yeah, it wants your attention, 100%. It's just cat things, right?
It always does. And I'm also going to do a warp smith, and it will either be a warp smith, or sorry,
Yeah, Tech Marine.
a tech marine. So it'll either be a tech marine or it will be the tech marine for the Thunderfire. It will be one or it will be the other.
Oh, nice. Thunderfire Cannon. Oh man, I remember when I was like modeling for play, and I made 3 because I was a rude guy.
Wow. So like I
Uh,
want to bring legends, and
yeah.
then the Mike Mudd is notoriously wow, okay, I say notoriously. I've been one time, so I know everything, right? When I went last year, it was a real mix of great terrain and no terrain. So I am skewing my list building with that in mind.
Just a bit more shooting, lean more that way.
Yeah, so I'm taking Vanguard because you're always -1 in cover, and
So
I'm
you don't
leaning
even
towards
you don't even care about the terrain.
well, I mean, getting not shot at all
Oh
is
yeah,
is
obscure. Of
better,
course, of course. I just think it's
but
funny. You always have cover.
but yeah, well, yeah. Listen, I can't I can't help my nature, okay? Like
No. It's just funny because I think of the for context for people listening. Army told me when he went last year, there was one of the tables at this tournament that was just basically a desert planet like Tatooine, like just no
it,
terrain.
it had Star Wars Tatooine terrain on it.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So, but if I
I
recall
could find a
correctly,
picture for you.
yeah, it's fine. But if I recall correctly, there was like as if there was virtually no terrain. So now
None.
playing an army where you always have the benefits of cover, I find very funny. It's
You
like, oh,
gotta
this guy
adapt,
must. It's not his first rodeo. You can tell.
adapt and survive, right?
Yeah.
Um. Yeah. So I'm gonna do that and that. I'll leave the repulsor till I decide to bring it. So Kratos, Warpsmith, Raptor, those and Thunderfire. Those are the number ones. Number ones.
I think my list for this event is virtually locked in. I tried stubbornly. I tried taking bolt gun inceptors, and they're just not worth the points. Just the way the data sheets are now, and with points
Not
increases, it's not
not
even.
unless
Oh,
well, so
tell
they
me,
are.
tell me. I like
It it it
I'm willing
it,
to
it
learn.
just depends. Okay, first of all, it depends. Do you have any strats to boost them? Like ignore cover, then they get immediately better. Um, but it also depends on what need do you need. Because plasma inceptors are great, but if you need to clear chaff, bolt gun inceptors are just better.
Are they?
Yeah, yeah. Because your chaff, like think about it, your cultists,
Oh, okay, low
uh,
quality, like bad armor save
yeah,
stuff. Fair enough.
yeah, things like that. Tyranids, whatever, like stuff like that. You're getting your strength 5 twin link, so you're going to wound on threes, and you're also getting sustain 2.
Yep, yep. Which is, it'll come up.
So you deep strike into the back with 3 plasma inceptors. They kill at most if you oath, they kill hopefully 6 things. If you deep strike 3 inceptors with oath in the back with bolters, you could kill 10 things. So it just depends on the role you want them for.
Yeah,
If you have
my
if you have lots of chaff, then plasma.
fair enough. My test game there. I mean, you were there, but you were playing your own game, so you didn't get to see
Yeah, I
too
didn't even
much.
know. I didn't even hear the end of it actually.
It was a tie, funnily enough.
So you both lost.
Yes, that's what that means. I told Lord Bigleton ahead of time that I'm just warming back up with the Salamanders rules or Space Marine rules, so like I'm just
Yeah.
looking to relearn my data sheets basically.
Hmm.
But in any case, it was a pretty good game. But I found the going up against Space Marines, like Iron Warriors in this case, as my test
Hmm.
game, wasn't the best value for or test case for Bolt Inceptors because it's in that scenario you kind of want
They're often
plasma.
going to take 3 ups. Yeah. It just depends on what you want them for. Like
Yep.
that's.
No, I mean I'd want them to, no, be able to shoot and do objectives, which either can do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends.
Well,
Like I could easily see a horde style Tyranid army where I'd find more value in what you're describing, right? So uh,
my I
maybe I
mean,
won't
my
make moves just yet.
suggestion is use them into a different army first before you write them off.
Yeah, I find with
I
blast though, the plasma guns having blast kind of helps with the like the
the
quantity problem to a degree, right? The more they bring, the more yield you
I
get. No,
do the plasma have blast?
that's a good question. Maybe I'm thinking of older editions.
Yeah, I don't think they do, but I'm double checking now because otherwise I've been playing them wrong for
If you're double checking, I'll let you tell me what's up.
yeah, you're I'm definitely making a scrunchy face. Let's see here. Inceptors. They have every other keyword. No, they do not have blast. Assault,
Oh,
pistol, and twin linked.
yeah, I must be thinking of older edition
So
plasma.
like so now like I overcharge most of the time. But say you're just going into chaff and you're twin linked, so you don't need to overcharge. Your strength 2 shots, strength 7, AP 2, 2 damage versus 3 shots, strength 5, AP 1, 2 damage.
Yeah, so for chaff,
With sustain 2.
yeah, I mean, I don't like to rely. I don't want to count on it, you know what I mean? But it is better to have it than not have it, obviously.
They are they're also an oath hog, so like without oaths, I don't really expect a lot from them. With oaths, I expect to wreck whatever they go into.
Yeah. Well, once you have five guys, or you're targeting units of five, then blast starts kicking in. You start getting a bit more reliable volume from them, and I think it's pretty good.
But we just confirmed there's no blast.
Yes, fine. You are correct.
I just looked it up for you.
I
This guy,
know.
he never listens, chat. Jeez.
I just want to believe. Don't don't poo-poo my dreams. Shy Onions asks thoughts on our Warpforge. Let me catch up on chat. Warpforge says I'm good just on Discord voice chat on the server. Had my game against Tyranids yesterday. Oh, is there another chat in the server? This is interesting. This is interesting. Oh,
Is
it's
this on your
Warpforge.
server?
Yeah. There is no other chat on server. I don't know. Army, are you averse to having Warpforge join the call?
No, not at all.
He's a YouTube and Marine fan like us.
Yeah.
And he is of a sufficient membership tier that he's allowed to come on here technically, so I do not want to deny it. Yeah,
More the merrier.
Definitely. How can I best do this?
He also put me on the spot. Like, what was I gonna say?
Yeah, I know.
No.
Well, look,
This guy live.
listen, if you're someone who is shy about talking to people you don't know, I just want to give you that out, okay? I'm just wondering how to best incorporate this.
Tell me. Your world.
I know. Give me a minute. Jesus.
Fuck.
You're not in my server, are you, Army?
No. If it's easy, if it's easiest, you can just
Yeah,
bring me in.
I can probably do that. That's probably the best way to do this.
Okay. All right.
We'll hop in over there. We'll join Warpforge. He likes Night Lords and paint stuff. And he goes to events.
Cool.
Okay, so this should give you a link to my server.
All right. I have joined. Welcome channel. Servo skull. Do I have to do anything else?
Nope. I'm just going to give you a role so you can join that group.
Can I be Lord Commander?
No, he cannot be Lord Commander, unfortunately.
All right.
You are a Moderati Primus or Secondus. That's what you are. You're a filthy advoc guy.
Oh no.
Your favorite.
All right.
Let's see here. We're doing this live, so you have to excuse me, chat. Let's see here. Oh, that's how you do it. That's how you do it. Okay. So now, at the bottom, Army, you should be able to go to like the members section.
I'll be in chat.
Yeah, hobby and chat. We'll just jump in there. I'm just going to drop out of this call. And we should be in the members hobby and chat.
Hello. Hey, yay, mic working.
We're back. Your microphone is fine.
Back again.
Unfortunately, I don't have a widget set up for Discord. Hey, Warpforge, how's it going?
Yo, can you hear me?
Yeah. You been waiting for a while?
No worries. Yeah, no worries. I got a new PC a few days ago, so it's like my mic's a bit quiet, I've heard, so it's like I'm not sure how to like raise the volume since I'm max on Discord, so
Sounds okay to me.
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. Chat will
Good.
let us know if it's insufficient. Probably. I saw your post for your new computer for Space Marine 2, yeah?
Yeah.
Nice.
It's like I had my PC. It was about 8 years old at that point. It served us well throughout uni. Got me through me dissertation and me master's degree. All good there, but it came to the point where it's like it's showing its age now. It's having funny moments where it's like you switch it on, the monitor won't switch on, so you need to switch the computer on and off about 20 times for the monitor to come on. Yeah, so it was getting to that point. It's like I need to retire it. I've came.
I think we lost you for
Track
a
it
bit
down.
there. Oh, you're back.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Right. Okay, cool. No, like I was saying, it was just I was very fortunate, just came across a bit of money and I was just like, well, why not? Why not get a new PC? So now I can play all the top of the range games now, and I'm like, yes. Finally, I can actually like catch up and actually play with friends and such with everything now because I've got a really nice spec'd up computer.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's kind of a you need to have. It's kind of a necessity, really. You need to have an adequate computer at least. Else, how do you do? How do you live?
It's just very busy right now. To basically make a long story short, right now, me and my partner are in legal proceedings of buying a house, so that's kind of taken priority for most of the year.
There goes all your
yes.
money.
Yeah, exactly. It's worth it in the end because at the end I'll have a dedicated hobby room, so I'll just have a room that I can actually get a table in, actually go back to what I wanted to do with my channel, which is battle reports. Still chugging away at those Night Lords. I'm trying to get as much done by the end of the year as possible. Because next year is going to be a big, very big year. Because I'm preparing for another Mordian Glory event. I've already said I'm dedicating to Chaos Knights to make them Night Lord inspired. I'm calling them House Dracul. And I'm basically I've already got like 6 War Dogs and a Knight Abominant, which I need to build up and paint. But I'm also planning on getting 2 Lancers because some of my friends are joining in this time. And I'm saying, you're all coming down to the same table, right? Good. Because one of them's bringing nothing but Chaos Knights, they'll theme it. Because they usually swap them out because they're just painted in like more neutral colours. So they're going to have Chaos Knights. I'm going to have Chaos Knights. They have one of the Resin Lancers, which has a funny story. Basically, he's got one of the Resin Lancers. I'm thinking about getting 2 plastic Lancers just so we can have literally like a row of 3 Lancers just charging the Light Brigade into a battalion of Lehman Russ tanks.
You guys are gonna both.
Yeah. Just like, yeah, we're just like, okay, we didn't bring enough anti-tank last time, so gonna bring some anti-tank. There's
cool.
other things in the background which I can't mention because me and my friend have got secret projects. Let's just say they're big secret projects.
Oh, something to look forward to on the channel, I guess.
Yeah, something to look forward to the channel and the Mordian Glory channel as well. Once the next event comes around, because they are 2 big projects which we're hoping to happen. Like I say, it's going to be a next year thing. But if that happens, it'll be the biggest event, I think, once we've got those, because no one knows what's happening behind the scenes. Only me and my friend know what we're doing. So again, we're going to literally announce it like at the last possible minute. So then it just happens and then they have to deal with it.
The Mordian Glory events, those are more narratively framed, right?
Yes. So they're just big apocalypse games with a story on every table. So we had an awesome time last year where we had a little bit of cross interaction with 2 tables. So on my table, I was the table commander. I don't know why. I think he just went, yeah, you can. I was like, ha ha, we're in danger. But I digress. Basically, so I was table commander on the table that was called Hive Primus. So this is the capital Hive city. The objective was simple: get to the governor, slay the governor. Unfortunately, I got very close, but we didn't get there in the end. But as the game was progressing, we had the Hive, and then there's the Underhive. and there was another table which was direct, like not directly, like there were two tables separate, but in terms of narrative, it was directly underneath our table, basically the Hive. And their story, their narrative was they've got several pillars. The traitors had to basically destroy the pillars. The loyalists had to protect them. But the loyalists got the wrong messages in like cross errors or cross communications. They saw the traitors trying to blow up the pillars because this is what's keeping the Hive afloat, basically. And the loyalists thought, well, if they're destroying it, it must be of significant importance, so we'll destroy it before they do. So they started blasting their own pillars.
That sounds pretty
absolutely.
fun. It's like a secret objective kind of thing, I'm assuming.
It was like it's like during the first day, because it was a 2-day event. It slowly clicked in. It's like, hang on, maybe we should stop blasting these and start protecting them. At that time, it was starting to really, really come undone. So the team decided, because they had a few Imperial Knights, that they were going to put those Imperial Knights where the pillars were and make the Imperial Knights as the pillars. So it's basically like, cool. Okay, right. Yeah, so like they're supporting the entire Hive. So yeah, that was interesting indeed. It was really fun. However, as they were destroying the pillars, sinkholes started emerging. And so on our table, sinkholes started emerging and like units from both sides were getting sucked in. And in one case, the sinkhole sucked in a Taurox Prime and it landed on the loyalist side for the loyalists on the other table. So things like that, little narrative things add to the, like, you know, the theme, the feel, the connection, the connectivity of the entire event. At the end, our governor, the governor on the Imperial side, on our table, was put up with a choice. In the Underhive, it was clear that it was collapsing and there was a flood coming through. So the governor had to decide whether to basically evacuate the premises for the loyalists, or, which would give time for the traitors to do what they need to do, or let everything drown. Just let everything drown. Drown it all.
What would it mean to like retreat? Like that means
so
everyone
when
on the team has to do something, or how would that work?
So basically, what would happen is the objective would change. The loyalists would need to just evacuate off their own like deployment edge of the board. Basically, get as much out as possible to get that narrative win. Because there's two what you call them? Conditions. There's two victory conditions. There's the tactical victory. There's the narrative victory. So the tactical is one where you just meet the objectives on the board and play the game kind of thing. And the narrative is who's made like the biggest impact in the story kind of thing. And that whoever wins the story wins kind of like not the event, but it gives something for both players. So what's happened in the past two events is that the Imperial side has always won the tactical victory, but the Chaos side has always won the narrative victory.
Well, that's the true victory anyways.
Indeed. That's how I feel about it as well. But anyways, so like the governor's faced with this choice, and he goes, because he's such a pompous, up his own backside sort of aristocrat, he's like, right, you know what? Just flood the entire thing. So as the whole Underhive's getting flooded, the Imperial Knights, the Guard, including all the traitors and Xenos underneath, all of it's getting flooded. Because it gets flooded, our Hive city collapses in on itself. It makes a massive sinkhole. And that leaves us into what is going to be next year's event and dealing with the aftermath of Hive Primus when it's just collapsed in on itself.
Oh, so each year it's the same continuity.
Yeah. So it's like a 3-part story. We've done part 1 I wasn't part of, part 2 I was part of, and then the last part is next year.
That's a great structure for a narrative event. That intrigues me.
Yeah. It's definitely fun. Like I say, it's just I didn't expect to be a board leader. They just kind of went, yeah, okay, you could be board leader. I'm like, okay, that's interesting.
On the spot promotion. It's funny.
Yeah, because a lot of it is how it used to be like in Rogue Trader, or there's a lot of role play element. So like, what Mordian does is that he makes the event, he tells people what the tactical victories are, But if there are anybody who has an idea of like a narrative thing to do, he asks they can ask the team leaders. So every board has a board captain. Board captains go back to the team leaders. The team leaders then go to Morty. That's just because there's like 80 people at the event, kind of thing. So there's a lot of people. There's 80 tickets that have already sold out. So like there's a lot of people there. So what usually happens is like things like when I was describing the Imperial Knights trying to support the pillars instead, that came from one of the players at the event. They went to the board commander and say, can we do this so that we can maintain some form of stability to try and like basically not back out, but like minimize the damage we've already caused ourselves in the earlier on day one. It was like, and then that went to Morty. Morty went, yeah, that's cool, let's do that. The sinkhole idea as well was another player just saying, yeah, sinkholes happen. Can we go to Morty and do? And Morty leaves like little things up and lying around the table. So he says like, search the buildings. Buildings and all that.
You cut out there for a second, so sorry. There's like secret objectives in the.
Yeah. So so it's like secret objectives and like buildings and such. So it's like if you go in and like basically spend an action to search a building, you might get extra buffs and bonuses.
That's pretty cool. So there's almost like a dungeon master sort of element.
Yeah. So Morty, exactly. Mordian's like the dungeon master, and he goes, yeah, that's a yes, that's a no. Like there's been a few ideas of like they said no to. There's a lot of ideas he said yes to. He's basically there just to like make sure that it's a flavorful time, but make sure that it's not leaning towards too heavy towards one or the other side, you know?
Yeah, or too crazy, like if the ideas are too out there, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like every warlord may have their own goals. Like a lot of the chaos was like you've got a polar ice cap board, which is basically it used to be an imperial shrine, but what no one realized was as in the earlier days when it was being constructed, there was a lot of chaos influence within the shrine, being in the shrine's foundations, and it all comes to fruition at this event. And it's actually a massive shrine to chaos, not a shrine to the emperor. So there was a part where the team leader had to decide: did he want to, because the chaos rituals had amassed such a power, does he want to give this power to the gods, or does he want to take this power for himself? And he chose to take the power for himself, and it's gotten very interesting. So he did that, but an inquisitor had managed to make some form of binding ritual. So he's taken the power, but he's now been bound inside the shrine. So the next year's mission for the polar fortress or the polar board, being Arctic board kind of thing, is what will they do with this shrine? Like will they unshackle the Chaos Warlord who has usurped the power, or are they going to try and take that power for themselves whilst he's down, or are they going to try and devote it back to the gods, kind of thing? It's like really interesting things.
Well, it's quite
like
a
that.
cliffhanger for sure as well, right? From what a way to end the last event.
Absolutely. Wild. Absolutely. Because I remember it's like when you're there, when you're in the scene, and you can see like the scene being set and all that, and people actually like role play out the things where they actually like pretend to die and collapse on the floor and such like that. It's just really good feelings. Yeah, it's you get like when it's like orcs with like the war energy or the like war connection happens, and you just get that vibe. It's the same thing. Like we're all latent psychers and we're all just feeling the vibes of the event, kind of thing.
No, that sounds real wholesome. Some real wholesome narrative gaming, which I can appreciate certainly.
Absolutely, it's a fun event. I'm looking forward to next year's. I think next year is gonna, if me and my friend can pull off what we want to pull off, which I can't really disclose in public because we want to keep this as a tightly knit secret as possible. This is gonna be an event to remember.
Awesome. It's already sold out, so
yeah. It's Like, whatever happens on Hive Primus, it happens with a bang. That's all I'm gonna say.
Awesome. That
Yeah.
sounds pretty good. I got a question from Misfit in chat. What bit is used on top of the normal shoulder pads? These are Tartaros Terminator shoulder pads. Just sitting on top. Yeah, nothing fancy to it. They just fit right on right over top of the Primaris shoulder pads. If it sits, it stays.
I don't. No, I'm not sure if that's how that goes.
I make my own rules, all right?
If it works for cats, it works for models.
Oh, cats. Oh, cats. Trying to figure out. Whenever I start a vehicle, it's always that. What am I gonna paint? Black. What am I gonna paint? Metallic. Problem.
You should have done them all the same. Save yourself the trouble.
They're all different.
I
They all got
know.
different panels.
Now you have this problem where like, oh, each vehicle has to be different than the last vehicle, and then
Well,
figure it out.
they're all different. They all have different armor panels and stuff.
That's fair. Most of the time, you don't have it's not like you have 3 repulsors at the same time, right? They're all different chassis. You just divide them the same. I've seen people paint like fleets, to use an improper term, like fleets of like tanks, like groupings of rhinos and repulsor-based vehicles and rhino-based vehicles, and they don't have the exact same panels, but it's similar kind of segmentation of components. And you could just decide, okay, you know what? Those raised corner lips that go over the treads or grav plates, those are always going to be whatever. You'd have to take that
Ship
kind of
has
approach.
sailed.
It is, yeah. Now you're committed. No, now you're committed. I get it.
That fire raptor has.
I get it because, well, you know how I painted my vehicles. They're whatever vehicle I add to this army has to be panel shaded, and that's why I'll never add any more ever again.
Famous last words.
I know, tempting fate, right?
Once it starts, it doesn't stop. I learned that lesson hard with my Black Templars.
Lots of kit bashing, right? If I recall correctly.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They're an interesting army. Like I love every army I start, it's always because it's one of those armies I wanted to start when I was a kid but didn't have the money.
Mm-hmm.
So I have about 6 or 7 armies right now, which are in progress. My Night Lords are getting the attention first because that's what I want to be like the mascot for my channel. But I also
the new Nemesis Claw boxes are being released again.
Yeah, I've already got the Kill Team stuff.
Nice.
Once I get paid and have a little bit in the account, I'm going to be buying myself 4 more boxes because yes, look, I didn't expect Night Lords to eat well. They are eating well, so I will.
Yeah, that one threw me for a surprise, honestly.
Yeah, it was. It was just like, I like this. This is very nice. I am very happy with what we got. More please.
Did Tavish pick up any?
Not yet. He probably isn't even aware that the box is up for pre-order. So I'll let him know now that you've made me aware.
Well, you can let him know that I had our local store bring in a couple boxes.
Oh, nice. Maybe I'll get him to come out of his cave.
Seriously, that guy. That guy.
Yeah, Tavish is a guy who, when he's in the hobby, it's infrequent, but it's deep, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Just hobby grinding, painting an army in 4 days before an event, that kind of thing.
I feel that. I feel that hard.
Yeah, but you know what? That's like one of the best part about events. They really get the hobby mojo going.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've got another big narrative event this November.
Nice.
Yeah, so even then, I'm gonna be really pushing myself to paint a lot more Night Lords. Currently, I have until the end of the month because Modi and Glory puts on a little like friendly painting competition in their Discord server, and it's just basically he makes one for like winter and one for summer. Summer is called like TTC, something command. Um, Painting. Basically, all it is just a bit of motivation. All you do is you vow a certain amount of points. You put the models on either primed or like unbuilt or unpainted, and then you just basically say, right, I'm vowing all this for a certain time, and I'm going to get it painted. Whatever you paint, how many points of that goes into your team's points pool. Whoever's painted the most points at the end of the event wins, basically. So I just thought it would be a very neat way of just getting the motivation going, painting models that I may not see for a while. Like, for example, I've got my Jump Lord that I kept based on my avatar on Discord being Holderoth Fenix. So I was like, it's finally time to paint them. And other characters, like, I'm paint because I've made essentially, yes, I've made Freddy Krueger for my Night Lords.
Nice.
It works. It
It does.
works
Yeah,
so
it's not a bad
well.
choice. Yeah, it's pretty flavorful.
Like,
Good reference.
what? Yeah, absolutely. Just to Games Workshopify it a little bit for that IP, that blessed IP that we all know and love. I call him Ferric Krugar, the Midnight Slasher. A little bit of play on words from the Springwood Slasher kind of thing. But yeah, basically, what you call it? Puppet Swore released a STL of like the night of like Halloween themed heads and such. So on it, they've got like Ghostface, Jason Voorhees, and they had Freddy Krueger. I'm like, there's a long running joke from when I was like a kid with my friends at the time, where we used to call Abaddon Freddy and Khan Jason, based on the weapons, being like the Town of the Horses, Freddy's glove, and the chain axe Gorechild is Jason's machete because it hits like it. And it's like that. It's like a 14-year-old evolution of the joke that we reached final conclusion by actually making Freddy Krueger. So I got the head. I bought Argyle Tal's body. So I wanted based on like the last film, not the remake, Wes Craven's New Nightmare, where it's more demon. The idea of that he's a demon who's inhabited the image of Freddy. So I've used Argyle's body for that, and then I've just instead of putting them on the half desecrated corpse, I've put them on a mountain of mortal corpses. So just a mountain of like normal people, of corpses.
Oh, what kind of bits do you use for that? There's 3D printed parts, or?
Yeah, 3D printed. There's someone around on my mini factory or big purple site that we all love called Zabrika's Workshop. I've probably mispronounced it and butchered that name, but Zabrivika's Workshop. They do a load of bases and base and bits, and one of the base and bits they've done is just mountain of blood, like just corpses and cadavers, just like flayed up and ripped apart and such. I'm like, that is 100% Nostraman A grade material.
Oh yeah, no, good choice.
Absolutely. So I was just like, rather than make it to Horus Heresy look alike, I was like, mountain of corpses. The only thing that makes it Horus Heresy looking is the Mark II bodies in his hand, because to try and like Dremel all that out, I was like, that's too much effort. I'll just paint it black, just to represent some Dark Angels or maybe some like old relic Black Templar armor or something like that. We'll keep it at that. Keep it nice and mute. But yeah, I'm hoping to get Kruger done, and then just get stuff done, and then after that, I've got a ton of stuff. So I've already said dedicated October to painting 10 Terminators and finishing off 10 Possessed. Then in November, at the end of November, that's when my thing happens. That's when the event happens. I'm going to try and get 3 Vindicators and 2 Land Raiders done. I bought some upgrades. That I think you know this one, Icarus Pattern.
Icarus pattern. Remind me? I'm drawing a blank.
They do a lot of vehicle upgrades. So they recently did a Night Lords upgrade, and they've got the STLs on, and I've bought the STL, but I looked at that, I was like, the amount of support you have to do, I was like, nah, like with current situations of the house and all that, I'm like, I'm just gonna buy them just to save me the time and hassle. So it was expensive. It was probably the most priciest upgrades I've ever bought, but I totally say 100% it's worth it. But I'm basically putting those Night Lord themed upgrades onto the Land Raiders, and for the Vindicators, I want to record myself doing this, where I've got 2 old Vindicators from when I was a kid, and they're a bit, busted up and such. I'm going to repair them, record myself repair it like it's an eBay rescue job, and I've got a 3rd one. And I also bought, you know how Cursed City's accessories, you've got those hanged men with like the point who are pointing like to the left or to the right and such. There's an option where you can have all the corpses to have bags over their heads. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to put them on various on the roofs of the Vindicators, and I'm going to call them my gallows. And the idea I have for them is like, if they want to do public executions and such, they do it on top of, like, they just gather loads of like mortals across the ship and all that, and they just make a public execution on the top of the Vindicators.
Nice, but that's all for November.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So
intense.
yeah.
It's intense. But I think you made a good call buying it, because that'll save you some time rather than trying to 3D print and deal with the fails and the prototyping and test printing and all that.
Absolutely. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, right now it's just the time to invest I just don't have. Like, it was expensive, but honestly it was totally worth it. The resin they use and all that looks great. Probably better than my printer because mine's very basic. So I think I've only done myself a service basically, and like I said, it is like their stuff is fantastic. Like, once I've got these painted up, because the airbrush is going to save my life again. Like, I used to hate painting tanks because they're big things that you'd see all the brush marks on. It's like it would never look perfect, and I'll always be like shaking my fist into the air, screaming in angry words, kind of thing. Yeah. But now with the airbrush, it's like, right, like what would take weeks to do takes like an evening. And it's like the magic, like my brain has just expanded beyond. I can see the meta of reality itself. It's just
like a Matrix
it's there.
moment.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah,
that's funny.
it's like, yeah, it's
and
like
it's,
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
It's like when I did the Predators. Like, I did it airbrush for the first time. It was just like, I see the answer to the meaning of life now.
I feel that. I think Army is also an avid airbrush enjoyer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Especially for vehicles. I get it.
Absolutely.
Can't stop, won't stop.
Absolutely.
It's a more efficient way to paint for sure. Especially for vehicles, especially. So those flat panels, as you said, it's just too painstaking. As someone who does it, it is painstaking.
What kind of fool would do that?
Listen,
in this day and age.
I am a connoisseur of fine arts and crafts. Okay. The only regret is that I have to do it for everything going forward.
Yeah.
But for the
you
first
could.
one or two what?
I would encourage you to repaint everything.
Get the hell out of here. Okay, I can't. Okay, the thing is, okay, hold on. The thing is, about panel shading, right? It does look very good, and it's harder to get it with an airbrush. Because I've tried both. Now, mind you, my airbrush isn't as good as the one you have, Army. It's a little bit more temperamental, lower quality, so I'll factor that in. But the amount of masking and unmasking that was required to airbrush panel shade my, what's that plane called? Storm Raven. I was just like, I would rather just have a fat brush and just chill out with a podcast. And
you have a Storm Raven?
Yeah, I have a Storm Raven because I wanted to put 3 Centurions in there in in 8th edition. 3 Centurions and Brayarth Ashmantle. Eat it! so rude. But I miss Brayarth Ashmantle. So
Yes.
cool.
Yes.
Such a cool
Yeah.
character.
I was trying to like find another flyer for this event that we're going to, because just they're a drug, let me tell you. Ignore all the rules, make people sad.
Interesting. I
There's
definitely want to
something
get
else.
some practice reps with you in before this event of ours. So
Yeah.
I'm sure
Well,
we'll.
what are you doing tomorrow?
Uh, you'll see.
Melonhead bailed.
Oh no!
we
Didn't even get to
we
ask.
got yeah. We got some time. It's
I
all
just
good,
had
but
a game today with him, so it's
oh yeah. Wow, so there he
yeah.
had his quota.
My week my fair enough. Yeah, I was gonna say similarly, my weekday budget for
Nah,
Ganon
he
is
said he
used
got
up.
he said he got some overtime, so it's all good.
Hey, when duty calls.
Okay. I just have so many ideas going through the old noodle that I want to try out.
I feel that hard.
Well, I've been so unmotivated for the last couple months, and now I've got a tournament to go to, and because it allows legends, it's like, oh, let's have some fun.
That sounds good.
Really blows the doors open, eh? It's almost like all the options you love aren't allowed in the normal game. Weird how that works, huh?
I'm not gonna get on my TikTok. I'm not gonna get on my TikTok. I'm not gonna get on my TikTok. I've always been an advocate for legends. I've always said we need to have a heavier pushback from the community in the same way the old world has basically said about legacy armies. And I think there are channels that are doing it, like Tabletop Tactics are allowing legends, and they're even doing homebrew stuff now, which is very good to see. I like the idea that creativity in games and gameplay should be pushed a lot more. Yeah.
Yep, I don't
I'm
disagree.
Yeah, I'm all for like homebrew and all that, because I used to do, well, I still do it a bit. So I did a lot of homebrew for one-page rules back in the day when I like successor chapters and the legions, the Chaos Legions, and I also did a lot of homebrew for Batman, the Batman Manager's game, where they used to have the Marvel license, and the Spider-Man, and you tried to make a cross-compatible game with Spider-Man, but they lost the license, and as soon as they lost the license, I was like, right, people still want to play like crossover games with Batman and Spider-Man stuff, so we're gonna make Spider-Man stuff, and the rest is history. So I did a lot of homebrew for them back in the day, and now I'm looking at. I've done a little bit of dabbling with like revising units for Chaos Marines into 5th edition, and I'm thinking, and I've had a conversation with a few friends of making our own edition of 40k. So yeah, I'm very, very much like pro homebrew. If that makes sense.
Oh, right on. Yeah, you will get no pushback from me on that. I'm a homebrew enjoyer myself.
Yeah, I'm a large advocate. You could say, absolutely. Yeah.
Yep. Just sometimes you got to add some of that flavor back in. It's more. I would hesitate to say justifiable, if I may use that word, for 10th edition, just because 10th edition doesn't have the layers of traits and relics we used to. For a lot of your, I don't know. I built quite a few Firekeepers character, like Master of Sanctity, all this kind of stuff, right? Where you're like, you have these rules available at the time, and then you're like, oh, this is so cool. Let me bring this to life, so to speak, right? Let me realize this in my own way, and represent it with these rules for these relics and traits. And now without them, those characters are kind of left a little wanting.
Yeah,
I find so.
No, I get you. It's like I'm trying to be as impartial as I can be, and diplomatic.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've had lots of characters that I can't play with, or even models I can't play with now. Like for example, I've got my Havocs. When I got the new kit, I gave them chainsaws and bolt pistols, which didn't come in the box. But you could take them because that's bare bones, it's dirt cheap kind of thing.
Right.
Can't even use that loadout, like basic things. My jump lords can't have thunder hammers anymore.
Yeah,
My
same
sorcerer,
with my Space Marine
yeah,
captain. It's like
I,
new
I
captain
don't
doesn't have
have.
it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like my sorcerers can't have jump packs, and they're not even legends. They just can't have them anymore.
You should look.
Things.
There might be one with legends for this tournament.
Yeah. No. In legends, they don't like. There's no jump pack sorcerers. Strangely enough, you can have for generic chaos space marines, you can have corn lords
They have
with
the bike.
juggernauts.
They have the bike librarian in legends. Or sorcerer.
Yes. I'm not
They
sure
don't
if
have
the
jump
sorcerer's
pack.
on bag. None. Yep, you can check if you want. There's no
Mm.
sorcerer of jump pack. Not even like an
Mm.
upgrade thing for it. So
Mm.
they just got rid of it. So it's just sat there going like, yeah, I feel that. I really do.
Oh yeah, as a Night Lords guy, I can imagine that's like the
Oh
default
yeah,
mode of a loadout, right?
my
Like, oh
boys.
hell yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's. I don't want to sound like I'm not someone who rage bait for clicks and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I like 10th edition. I when I read the mechanics, I like it. I enjoy it. It's simple enough to get my head around. Somewhat outside of in the core rules. The rules commentary is a different manner, but um, in general, I enjoy the feel of 10th edition a lot more than I did with ninth. But I feel as though my issues with the edition, trying to articulate myself here as best as I can, it's not necessarily the rules themselves that get me outside of the removal of the initiative stat. That is the one thing I wish they brought back, because I hate fights first as a rule. I hate the charge and how who strikes first. It just feels very kindergarten, if that makes sense. But I feel it's more to do with trying to articulate myself. It's the way armies are presented these days, not in terms of flavor, but in terms of when they've stripped back to the core essentials. What I found is that we 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 still have the same issue that we've had from many editions, and we're not talking from like 8th edition onwards. We're talking from like 5th edition, where it's when people say balance, and this is always the biggest question, and it led me onto a bigger question of like what makes 40k 40k, and what makes grim dark. But before I go down even that rabbit hole, like when we go down what does balance mean, when I've talked with various people, like in my local club or even online elsewhere, it always boils down to the same thing, which is I don't want to feel cheated in my games. And when you boil that down, like when I've actually not pressed for answers, but basically asked them to explain further, it's always down to two things: agency and disparity. So we have a better representative of disparity now, because from 5th to 7th edition, I think the issue that people had was that there was a grand canyon of a difference in disparity between armies. You could have like orcs and chaos space marines at the time, which would be like rolling on tables and tables and tables and tables for days, and even hurting themselves along the progress or turn themselves into spawn, which is very flavorful, and it can be powerful. But then you had armies like Tau and Eldar, which were playing with the Markalites, which would make them hyper consistent. So whilst you have to bet on a dice, they have an integrated like second or third in-game currency or in-game economy where they can make themselves hyper efficient at attacking and basically lethality. Eldar were the same, especially Taldar in 6th edition. And 7th edition, it was very much a case of Eldar, there was also things like, for example, if with 40k you don't make half measures, you go in absolutes. That's why we had like the Iron Hand Smash Captain of the 1++ feel no pain. Things, yeah, exactly right. It's the disparity between armies, and people just all they wanted to do was just to play a game they enjoyed without having to feel as though they hadn't had any agency because the lists were built in certain ways. Going on to 8th edition onwards, I do feel the disparity is better. However, I do think the same issue integrates itself, if that makes sense. So a lot of people say this edition's a lot more balanced. But when you look like with Mordian and all them, I look at the JCMS Meta Mondays and such. And when you look at this individual stats and the individual results, when you say factions like say 45 or 47%, you take a deeper look and it's only one or two lists that are actually like doing the heavy lifting for the rest of the faction. So is it the fact, like for example, Chaos Space Marines, not doing too great right now. When you look deeper into the stats, you find that Chaos Cult are making the rounds with good players, but there's like 2 players winning GTs with them. And then most of the players are going to Renegade Raiders. All the others, you got a few popping up for Vashtor's detachment and a few popping up for Iron Warriors. Very, very occasionally you'll see Alpha Legion or Night Lords. So you have to ask the question, is like A, what's going on there? B, is that faction actually balanced, or is it the list that's balanced? If it's the list that's balanced, how would you say, you know, with the top lists, like say the Thousand Suns with the Cabal points and all them, with their index, what do they do that was so different to editions ago? Like say in 5th edition when you had Drago Wing, Castle and Crow Wing, Guard, Leaf Blower lists, Space Marines had Drop Pod Assaults, Blood Angels.
Yeah, the specialist detachments.
Yeah, exactly. Like how are these 1 or 2 detachments, how are these lists any different from the lists editions ago? Why is it that they're so good? Is because they rely on speed and removable of agency in the early game. And if that's how balance is presented, what have we learned from when people started really banging the drums about balance, which was probably around 5th edition? What has Games Workshop learned in between that time? Because as far as I'm aware, they've changed the rules often to try and make it a lot more accessible for the current generation. But has balance actually been achieved? So, and that's always a question I always find. In our quest to get a better balance, do we have a better balanced game, or are we just repeating the same mistakes over and over and over again? You know, a lot of people got irate with Eldar, definitely in 7th edition. I remember 7th edition Eldar destroyed the competitive scene in my local circuit. And that's just because, and I still remember it to this day, people still playing 40k. There was a tournament going on, people playing 40k, but only 2 people were at the tournament, and it was 2 Eldar players with literally down to the war gear, eidetic lists. The only difference was the paint job. One was Ulfi, one was which got Ianodin. So it's like it's that sort of thing, and it's just like I question, like, you know, what is, I don't want to say what is the authenticity or sincerity of balance in the current edition. And like I say, I don't hate this edition. You know, I don't like. I had a very rough first match where it's like in a 500-point game, the opponent brought a Waith Knight. So you know,
yeah,
like
that's a scumbag move, 100%.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was meant to be a social event, light-hearted tournament. And basically, someone said there was a box of Leviathan on the line, and the story writes itself from there. But like, so I've had a very rocky start with 10th edition as well, but I don't hate this edition. Like, I've disliked other editions, like 7th edition, for example, or I had a big falling out with 8th edition because I felt as though people were telling us that it was balanced. I was bringing my Night Lords, all the Raptors down and such, get my backside handers to a platter, and I'm like saying, where's this balance? Because I'm just seeing a repeat the same.
Yeah,
But yeah,
the goal of seeking balance leads to at least like a Thanos
yeah,
outcome. Okay, it's just bad.
yeah.
Like I don't.
So
Uh,
yeah, I know I get very deep on
you
this subject.
can't.
It's just
It's almost as if you can't really. You strive for balance under a particular lens, and
Mhm.
under any other lens, it's not exactly valid as balance. Like for example, like in your
Yeah,
Night Lords example, right? Like 10th
yeah,
edition right now, by Games Workshop's metric, the game is fairly balanced, right? They show their meta watch
yeah,
charts. Everything's in the 45, 55, or most things, anyways, right? Is in that sweet spot. The game is balanced in that regard. But then, like you said, you start bringing in other detachments. They don't work as well. They're not as optimized. Then things are out of balance. But that's one of my gripes
yeah,
with 10th edition is the detachment
yeah,
structure gives the rules writers an out in regards to
yeah,
balancing the armies because there's no more sub factions; there's just factions.
yeah,
It's it's kind of like a losing kind of prospect. I when I was doing my house ruling experiments, I also found that like I was striving to seek for balance, but I realized like it's almost fruitless to seek for balancing a detachment and trying to make it match into Games Workshop's lens of how they're writing for balance
yeah, yeah,
because I'm not building lists the way tournament players are building lists, right? So when I'm
yes,
then it kind
yeah,
of skews my metrics completely. So I kind of realize like
yeah,
you just if you're house ruling, you're basically playing thematic open play and just write it to serve for
yeah,
itself. It's not something I think I mean, you can share it,
yeah.
you know, like I can make a thematic battle
I
report and share it, and then people will enjoy
yeah,
it for what it is. But it's not something that can be sweeping or broadly applicable to the game at
yeah,
large because Games Workshop's writing rules, or
yeah.
not even writing rules,
I
scoring for balance or pointing for balance on under a totally different metric.
Absolutely. Like, I find that balance has always been similar to an optical illusion. It's no one's striving, no one's ever asked for like perfect balance in the sense that, like chess, even chess isn't perfectly balanced because whites go first, kind of thing. People, when they say about balance and such, it's always more of a feeling than a statistic, if that makes sense. For example, like when I played against Mordian in my battle report against him, I didn't feel cheated. In fact, I felt like I learnt a lot about the game because usually when I play with friends and such, it's like because my friends are somewhat new to the edition and I've spent more time reading the rules, I feel as though it's like it's more of like a test of knowledge. So it's like I get not not in a negative way, but I get double the pressure of like trying to remember the rules and then trying to remember their rules so we know how our rules interact with each other. When I'm playing against someone who also knows the rules, it feels like there's a weight that's been lifted where I can actually start to actually learn to play the game. And even though he almost tabled us, I didn't feel cheated. I didn't feel like I didn't stand a chance or anything like that. So to me, it was like it was a fine, balanced game because we were both enjoying the game. Dumb stuff was happening. I was killing off most of my own units with dark packs because I was failing them left, right, and center. But it was a nice. There wasn't like that feeling of like that, that jab, that spike. I don't want to say spike in pain, but that sting when you feel as though like things just been removed for apps just because that's how rules is written. That's how the situation worked itself. And I think a lot of people are like that. A lot of people say their perfect game is when it's always a back and forth and it always goes down to the last dice roll. And I think that's what
Mm-hmm.
everyone wants every game to be. I think that's the thing to aspire to. When I look at balance, I want people to feel as though they haven't been cheated just because, like, for example, 7th edition Eldar, when they could have invisible Wraith Knights, or the Wave Serpent Shield, where you'd fire Las Cannon, get a penetrating hit, and then it would just be turned into a glancing hit on a 2-up. Um, if people feel as though, like, there's a back and forth, if, like, say, you might remove one of my big heavy tanks, so you remove, like, say, for example, we're using legends and I bring a falchion, you remove the falchion on turn 2, but then I counterattack and get rid of, say, two, like a gladiator lancer and 2 units of intercessors, and that makes me have a tactical advantage because of how objectives are played and such. People don't mind that as much. It's when people go up against an army and just go, right, okay, on my opponent's first turn, they've removed, 1,000 points out of my 2,000 point list. I only have 1,000 points to play with, and it can't do anything because it's all battle shocked. Things like that. It's when the agency is totally taken away in an early game. A lot of people find that gripe, if that makes sense, because it stings. It does, or it has that throbbing, aching pain. I'm not literally speaking, but you get what I mean.
Yeah, it's the
yeah.
We've all had games like that in 40k. I mean,
Yeah.
8th edition was famous for that, just because terrain rules weren't what they are now, and you would get blasted turn 1. And often, the new model syndrome is almost a result. That meme is almost a result of what you're describing, right? In the local play group, you bring something new. It's scary. It's unknown. There's only one of it, and so it gets focused first. And often, it's the new model syndrome is you put it down and now you pick it back up, right?
Yeah.
I think that's very applicable to what you're describing. But would you say that's the case still? With terrain rules the way they are now, most of your things should be hidden. Well, terrain's the equalizer in that conversation. If you're playing with very rigid... In our play group, for your context, and I guess for the listeners as well, we've gotten used to templating our terrain layouts in a kind of tournament style. Not my favorite, but with regards to this context, it is serviceable in regards to if you want to keep your stuff safe in round 1, well, basically until you choose to put it out there, you can. Within reason. If you have too many big things, then you won't have enough space, but maybe that's what reserves are for, right? And you have that choice. So I feel like it's less of an issue now, but there's other contexts where those feel-bads could rear their ugly head.
Yeah, it's...
most of my feel-bads in 10th edition are just lack of flavor, more than anything. I like the core... I think I've said it before. I've certainly said it to Army before. I like the core rules changes from 10th edition. I like the mission structure much more than 9th edition. I hated building my list for specific secondaries in 9th edition. I feel like it just borked the way I would look at list construction.
Yeah,
but in 10th, it's just the lack of flavor, I think.
Yeah,
hurts.
For me, it's... What I disliked about 9th edition from my own experience is that when I boiled every game down, especially the competitive games, I realised that reading out the rules was kind of a waste of time, because once you've actually seen what the game is like, it always boiled down to how many mortal wounds can you pour out in a turn, and how much...
There's a lot of that. Yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah, I looked at it and it was just this is 9th edition. Reading the rule book, although very nicely laid out, is a waste of time. Just read it, of course, to actually play your first few games. But once you've got a few games under your belt and you learn through osmosis, especially if you're playing competitively, it is just a case of just bring as many mortal wounds. That's why Space Marine players were playing double or triple Volkite, Culverin, Contemptors and such. It was always about how Eldar was always mass mortal wound spam and all sorts. So it's the drift away from that I enjoyed.
No, it's good. I don't think that's a hot take at all.
Yeah, so it's I say, I don't want to shit all over. Sorry, I don't want to dump all over 9th edition.
It's okay.
That's fair. I don't want to dump all over 9th edition because some people did enjoy it. More power to them. I've had games that I enjoyed in 9th edition as well. I started my Necron army in 9th edition. I'm a Black Templars, really got into them in 9th edition. So it's... I won't say it was the worst edition ever. It's just I found that the game was often skewed in the favor for lethality in terms of mortal wounds. So that's why it's like I don't remember Ninth Edition as fondly as other people could. Because that's all it was to me. Like every list I would say it's literally just like pour this, there's nothing.
No, you're
10th
not
edition,
off base. I don't think that's a spicy take at all, dude. It's like
yeah.
ninth edition. That's also the edition where they had to give demons demonic saves, right? Because they
Yeah.
screwed up their invulnerable and AP system, like beyond repair.
Yeah,
So it's
absolutely.
totally reasonable for you to have that takeaway.
Absolutely. Like 10th, like it, can't, do I think there's less flavor? I see it as more as it's kind of a sidestep where it's not really written. It's more abstract. You have to kind of make it work, which could be for better or for worse. Currently, a lot of people see it for worse. Fair enough. More power. Because it's hard because 10th, I find my issue trying to articulate myself as best as I possibly can here. My issue from 10th comes, I feel as though it's starting to dip back into lethality. Like in my game today, nothing wrong with my opponent. Class act. I brought a ton of basically I brought a ton of painted units just because I wanted just I swapped from Dreadtons to Packbound Zealots. It's a new army I'm fighting for the first time in this edition, being Tyranids. Let's just see how this goes. I'll stress test a bunch of possessed. I got like 20 possessed on the board. Just fling everything and see what sticks. And I'm just sat there going like, there was I can't remember. I don't know which detachment this is, but it's basically that detachment that once per game they can force everything on every every enemy unit on your opponent's side on your opponent to have battle shock test at -1. If they fail it, all sorts of shenanigans happen. And there was like this Neurothrope with the 6 zoanthropes and all that, and it was just basically like it. That was the Death Star. It was just nuking things left, right, and center. But basically, turn 3, that was when the game was decided, and it's like I say, nothing really against the game. It was a bit like we were playing Prior Nexus, and it was like the one of the unexploded reserves or something like that, where it's like you spend an action to move the objective around 6 inches. So it was a new mission for us both, and I think we both found it kind of weird. But it wasn't too bad, the game in of itself, but I just felt like as though it's just like, right, I have like what till turn we had to call it at the end of turn 3, I think, because it was just due to time. It was closing at like 9 o'clock kind of thing. And but I was just thinking like, this is when the game's decided. I now have to sit through what an hour and a half of me just removing models now, because I could have pulled back primaries, but because basically when that happened, the Shadow and Warp thing, because that happened, all the primary I could have scored, I couldn't score then. Because I couldn't score and my opponent had a 10-point lead, it was just a case of my opponent basically racking up as many victory points as possible.
So the
I
battle
can't
shock.
catch up. Yeah.
So the army, so the Tyranids, what's it called? Shadow in the Warp goes off. You take battle shock tests across your whole army, and you failed the battle shock
I'm not.
tests, which are a dice roll. Oh, but
Yeah.
on the objectives you were trying to contest specifically, that's what happened.
So basically, what was happening well, like I got my units on the objectives, and they were uncontested. At the beginning of their, yes, at the beginning of their turn or my turn. I'm trying to remember.
No
how it
worries.
was very.
What I'm trying to parse out is because I dabbled with Tyranid. I basically did a round robin of a few games with each of the armies I played, which includes Tyranids at the
Yeah.
start of 10th. So I have somewhat of a understanding of how Tyranids works. My biggest problem with Tyranids at the start of the edition was like the army rule required what you're describing, Shadows in the Warp, once per battle, army-wide battle shock tests. In theory, it's strong, but it requires a lot of stars to align, right? Like you need the
Yeah, you
when
jump
I
into
use
shuffle.
when I
Yeah.
use Shadows in the Warp, my opponent needs to be on objectives and needs to fail battle shock test with those units on objectives for me to get the value, right? Now,
Yeah.
that's not exactly how the army is right now because there have been facts and everything and all of that. But at the time, that's what it was. So it sounds like it's just a you got lucky in this case.
Yeah. Oh,
If that's
yeah.
what happened.
Like, yeah, I fully
Um,
agree. Like, I got unlucky, but because I got unlucky, it was just a case of the game was decided then. Like I say, it's nothing against my opponent or anything like that. I just found that once I realized that, it was kind of it did knock my sales a little out of the rest of the game. Because it's just like, right, the only thing I can do here is basically just try like my mind, especially in a competitive mindset, boils down into three stages. The first stage is how can I win this game or how can I score as much as possible. My second, if I can't seem to really get ahead, I'm thinking how high can I score this turn, this specific turn, how high can I score. If I can't even do that, my last thought is what can I do to deny my opponent as much as possible? Because at the end of the day, like say for example, I'm at a tournament, we're there for the entire game, unless my opponent is an ass. I I I will still try and play to the because we've both paid money into the event. I'll try and play as best as I can.
oh, for sure. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
if I yeah, the last priority the last priority in that system is like okay, it's not about if I can win or not. It's about not letting you win, not letting you take first place. You know, if I'm going to go down, I'm going to drag you with me, kind of thing.
Yeah, those are
Um,
that's a good protocol for
yeah.
competitive play.
So it's yeah. I usually use that system just so that avoids me from getting salty, basically, because like I've grown up with the game. I've definitely had my fair share of salty moments and such, and I try to avoid that as much as possible. I wouldn't say like I get ragey, but it's like I always feel like I have to feel like I watch my temper a little bit sometimes.
We've all been
Yeah,
there. It's
like
fine.
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
So it's just I try and keep it as I don't say positive, but I try and keep myself on like some sort form of rail system so that we can still both have a good time. So whilst my opponent won the like going back to a bit to the Morty and Glory bit, like my opponent got the tactical victory in that game. The Tyranids won the game all in and all out. I said I still claim the moral victory because he deep struck his wing hive tyrant in my back lines. In the back lines, I had Harkenwell claim with 5 raptors just sitting on an objective. I was like, okay, he charges them in. I'm like, okay, so Harken, which I use my Night Lord proxy, which I call the Jaeger. I was like, right, okay, so we're going to strike each other. He kills like 3 raptors. Harken gets to play. Harken sticks the Hell Spear into him, does the claw damage, even with paroxysm casted upon himself, gets the guy down to gets the hive down to 4 wounds. The
Nice.
next turn, yeah, the next turn managed to finish him off. Like literally the last turn, I roll for dark packs for lethal hits. I get it off. I roll for the Hell Spear. Rolls a 6. Gets the 6. So that's a lethal hit, and then D3 additional sustained hits, which then one go which gets to wound as well. He's going in, he's flying in, he kills the Hive Tyrant. He gets the Chain Glaive right in, rips and tears, gets the claw in, sinks those fingers deep into the arteries of its neck and just rips him out. And then the psychic backslash, well, yeah, the death throes or the deadly demise reduces what you call him, the Jaeger, to 1 wound. It was just like, yeah. So I felt so like as he's tearing out, the Hive Tyrant lets out a psychic death scream, and that's what like does all the psychic damage to him, which makes him be on 1 wound and such. So it's like I try and take like that as a positive kind of thing. Like for me, it was just like my opponent is always wanting to fight my Night Lords because they really liked what they saw on Instagram and such. It's like, right, I don't want to bring a ton of unpainted models, although I do have a lot of them. But I do because I want to try out some stuff new. So I was like, right, let's make this a little bit fun. Let's make this a little bit iconic. I'll have the Raptors. So I'll have a squad of 10 with Freddy Krueger, and I'll also have a squad of 5, the Jaeger. I've just painted the Sorcerer, so I'm just going to try that for a spin with 10 Legionaries that are all painted inside a painted Rhino. And I'm going to have my Master Executions with another 10 painted Legionaries and another painted Rhino. And let's just show a load of painted models because that's what they're there for. And the story writes itself from there. So as far as I'm aware, my opponent did enjoy that game. I enjoyed the moral victory of that game. The fact that, like, for the first time, so the Jaeger has now killed a Lancer, he's killed the Armiger, and he's killed a Hive Tyrant. He's taken names every time, every game, and he's killed an Inquisitor as well. He's
Nice.
taken
I mean,
high
that's
profiles.
one of the most enjoyable parts of the hobby, 100%.
Yeah.
Getting to create a character and sort of realize the lore that we are so fond of, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah,
Have
like,
you read the Night Lords books?
oh yes. Uh, so to put it in perspective, obviously I've got the Night Lords trilogy. I've got Lord of the Simon Spurrier novel, Lord of the Night twice. When they redid it for the Winner's Choice Book Awards, I got that again. I've got a copy of Blood Reaver somewhere, but already got the trilogy, and I also rebought the trilogy again on audiobook. There's a lot that I want to do with Night Lords. There's a lot that I want to talk about Night Lords on my channel. Because I love Night Lords because to me they are the perfect embodiment of the grim darkness of the 41st millennium. One things like that is grim, like in the genre of grim dark that 40k spawned, is the feeling of hopelessness and loss. There is no savior to come for you, kind of thing. And what I was saying, like, what makes 40k 40k, and what is grimdark for 40k now. And I found like Night Lords are the perfect embodiment of that 40k verse because they are hopeless. They are the villains. The like the Legion as a whole know that they are the villains, but how they react to that truth is what makes them interesting. It's what gives them range. So, for example, you got characters like Scrivok, who's like a mustache twirling Starscream-esque character, doesn't really care that he's the villain. He's just after for power. He just wants to be the leader of things, just for the title in of itself, because that's what he places value in. You've got people who just get by, like Mercutian or Uzaz, who just they've got their own stuff to deal with. You get them. There are some characters who feel vengeful about it, like Talos. Talos wanted to be a hero. Like, it's literally written in the book. He wanted to be a hero. Look how that turned out. And he's angry. He's angry at a universe who's basically said, you are the worst of the worst because of the planet you were born on. And he wants, because the Imperium, you are a traitor to the Imperium that you once served because of where you're from, because of where you're from. You can't be the hero. You have to be the worst of the worst. You are the villain, and there's no other way out. And he's vengeful about that. That's what his whole speech is about. That famous speech that he goes about saying like how he's going to rain corpses on the golden throne and all that. He's vengeful. There's a lot of interesting things because, like, unlike other legions who kind of try and justify their actions or justify their heresies, like Fabius Bile tries to justify it with his like his own god complex. You've got people like the Iron Warriors who try and justify it as they're the people who get the job done, despite being salty and bitter about it every step of the way. And that's not a dig at Iron Warriors. I love Iron Warriors. If I wasn't a Night Lord player, I would be an Iron Warriors player. So
No, I get what you're saying. It's the
Yeah.
Night Lords are beloved, I think, or not maybe beloved. They're
Everybody
beloved,
loves
that's
an
not the right word.
underdog.
It's not just that. They are refreshing because they are villains who are fine with lacking nobility, I think. Like
Yeah,
every other legion has a
doesn't-
spin of past honor or reclaiming honor or fighting for
Yeah.
some righteous cause or under their purview, under their view, right?
there's an honesty about the Night
Yeah.
Lords. As weird as
The
that sounds.
villains doing villainous things for the sake of it.
Yeah.
And you want
Yeah.
some good bad guys in a story. Like it's nice to
Yeah,
have
like-
your villains that have their noble ideals that are warped and twisted from the moral truths of the setting. But
Yeah.
you want some bad guys who are just bastards, right? I think Night
No,
Lords
absolutely.
Night Lords are the best at it, honestly.
Yeah, like what I like about like I say, when it comes to range and such, it's you've got Night Lords who they are honest about their intentions. They like the whole thing about not mistrusting the demon and such. obviously that's changed in the 41st millennium, but what I like about Night Lords is that level of independence where, and with that honesty, is they do it for purely selfish reasons. They do it for deep interpersonal reasons. They butcher and they flay because they want to. They're not doing it like for some demonic ritual in service to a dark god, like say the Word Bearers. They're not doing it for a quest of knowledge, for the great changer of ways of Zinch. They're doing it because that's what they want to do. That is their personal choice. Not doing it for us to serve another. They're doing it for themselves because that's where they get their independence from. The honesty of that, like I say, like with my own characters, like I made a short audio novel on my channel, and I want to progress that as well because that's meant to feed into the Mordian Glory narrative as well. I've got a range of characters. I've got people like Freddy Krueger who are like Erebus, just embrace the role. Like they know they're the villain and they love it because that's Freddy Krueger to a T. You've got people like Caraxus who are dubbed the Midnight Messiah, who is deluded. Like where Talos is vengeful, Caraxus is in total denial, like a bit like Kurz in a sense, where it's like he wants to reunite the Legion in his image, not the actual Night Lord's image, where he wants to be that dark king of justice kind of thing. He wants to be the fear, the consequences of the actions kind of thing, and the ends justify the means sort of thing. Completely blindsided and everything, which turns on its back because as he blindsides everything, he doesn't really see what happens on his ship kind of thing. But we progress along from to the current narrative where it's like when I've got the Jaeger now, and the Jaeger is a purely coincidental character that I've kind of made along the way as I've played a few games. His whole reason for leading the warband now, outside the service of the minor deity that I've called Nox, is because he wants his warband's name remembered forever within the Imperium. Not in terms of obviously in service to the Imperium, but he wants to be remembered as the one, or the one who could make the Imperium's stomach churn. He wants to be the one who basically carved a name like Abaddon, but purely out of spite, not out of to prove a point to rule the Imperium, but just to get them to know that he's the boogeyman. He's the one the Imperium should be afraid of, kind of thing, fitting into the Legion aesthetic. You've got other characters who have their own deep self-serving issues as well. I've got Navia Kravor, the Tormentor, who is basically like a surgeon with latent psychic gifts, who went to Fabius Bile's apothecarian. Fabius saw some good in him, and so gifted him a copy of a Chirurgeon. And basically, all that means is that in future stories or in future games, where if I want to use both of them, it's a plot hook to provide an explanation of why there's two Chirurgeons on the board. You got the Sorcerer and you got Fabius Bile, and Fabius Bile is basically collecting in a debt, gifting the Chirurgeon in a trade for a favor, because that's how Fabius Bile works. So things like that. He's basically like the Tormentor's basically making his own experimentations and such for his own selfish cravings and feelings. He thinks he might be doing things for somewhat of a scientific good for his own studies, but really, in reality, he's doing it for the pleasure of flaying and torturing other innocents. Things like the warp and twist reality. I've got a perfect character as well. Doesn't show up after the Amata Crusade, which I know doesn't mean anything to you right now, but once I've got it all written down in like an audio novel, it will. There's a guy which I've based off Jigsaw from Saw, which is called Jedeth Cremathis, and I call him the Toy Maker. And in the earlier stages of my warband, he's the one he's a warpsmith who maintains the machines and such, but he's also someone who creates torture devices for the ship and such, like the games in Saw kind of thing, to get people to talk. Now, where he gets really twisted to fit in with why Jonathan Kramer in Saw does the things he does, is I decided to experiment a lot with the idea of memory. So, a lot in the Great Crusade, you had a lot of legionaries who had the memories wiped, similar to how like it is in 40k. But as I've noticed with like a few books in the Fabius Bile trilogy and Lords of Silence, if you haven't read that, that's a fantastic Death Guard book by Nick Kime. But I was listening to my friend with my friend who does collect Death Guard, and there's a few moments where we're just raising our eyebrows, going, "Did they just actually say that?" Like a Nurgling taking a dump in a sorcerer's armpit. Yeah, that was something. But something I found interesting was that the psychoanalysis, the psychology, the psycho-indoctrination, it's over a certain amount of time, it starts to fragment and break, and they start remembering things, or start breaking down the xenophobia part of their indoctrination. So in Lord's Silence, you have a character who is a sorcerer for Nurgle, who holds an appreciation for Eldar and Eldar culture and things that are Xenos, which is very unlike an Imperial Space Marine, for example. You get a lot more range and such where when you're in the warp, what a Chaos Marine is essentially is an oath-breaking paladin having Wild West adventures in a post-apocalyptic hellscape. They are forced into situations because, like, for example, they don't have the Munitorian backing. They have to get those ammunitions themselves. They need to make deals with Dark Mechanicum or traders on Demon Worlds and such and so forth. They have to do a lot of things that they wouldn't usually do in order to survive. And obviously in the warp starts things. So for my character, the toy maker, I had the idea that basically as part he did all the trials to become a Night Lord Legionnaire back in the Great Crusade. The night before he leaves to become an Astartes, his like gang in his hive have a tradition where they can pick whatever woman out and then just basically do what they want for that night. The idea is that they produce like the strongest, the strongest genes to keep up the stock of eligible legionaries, kind of thing. Then obviously he goes off. The idea I had was that he goes off, he does his Great Crusade stuff, and then he comes back for like a parade or another recruitment ground and such. As he comes back, a boy comes up to him and says, "You're my dad." And because of psycho-indoctrination, he's completely forgot about this event. And so it just doesn't register for him. He's like, okay, and whatever. But as the eons develop, as the 10,000 years develop, that psycho-indoctrination starts to fragment, and he starts getting memories back of this particular encounter. When he gets this particular encounter, he starts feeling like a void within himself. He doesn't fully, because he's an Astartes, he doesn't fully understand fatherhood. He just can't really comprehend it because that's Astartes are weapons, not like Fabius Files are collectors.
I get it. I get it. I mean, it's
yeah.
I love the enthusiasm, and I think you're enjoying the creative nature of the hobby, like in the most exemplary way, like probably the best way.
Yeah.
It's like everything you've described over the last like five minutes or so is like a perfect deep dive into what this hobby can afford from the creativity point of view. And I'm kind of the same way with my own my own armies. And I think a lot of people in the hobby, I guess more of the narratively leaning players, maybe less so with players who are purely competitive, but I think there's probably a good gap that overlaps there, honestly. Have characters that they make with their stories, or even just not just in GW armies if you're making your own Ultramarines captain, but even if you're making your own Chaos Warband or Eldar army, whatever, even a Hive fleet, right? You could have all sorts of neat creative opportunities. That's kind of why I like house ruling so much, because it allows you to represent that,
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a lot to love about the setting of 40k. Like, I'm not, I'll like being honest, I'm not really fond of the current story for 40k. Post Gathering Storm, but I still enjoy the setting.
Yeah,
The
well,
idea,
what is the story post Gathering Storm, really? I think I follow it more than most. So that's not a brag, by the way.
oh, that's fair.
I just decided to be a reader of the Dawn of Fire series because I'm like, let me see, right? Let me see
That's
what
fair.
they're trying to do, and I am still waiting. I'm waiting for the lion came back and nothing happened. Is what I feel like the
Yeah,
story is, right? Post Gathering
no,
Storm.
absolutely.
Um,
Yeah,
I but I'm with you. The setting is still serviceable. It's not that different, honestly.
yeah,
Post Great Rift.
yeah, absolutely. Like for me, it's like the current story is just Horus Heresy 2, Electric Boogaloo, Here Comes Wish Fulfillment. Like
You mean in
the
relation to
most,
Abaddon, like Horus Heresy 2,
not
or
just,
what are you
well,
trying
not
to?
just well, the return of Primarchs. Like I remember back in the day when the Primarchs return was always like a subject of speculation. It was more of a conversation to have as a bit of fun. Now I see it as more like a bit of a wish fulfillment fantasy. Like a lot of people who want the Primarchs return and just want to see two Primarchs fight again to see who wins again. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like for example, like the Oxvorman. You've got Angron and the Lion comes back. What do? They have a fight and everyone remembers that. No one remembers the Farsight bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does
Well,
anyone?
Primarchs are
Yeah.
too. They're too much of an attention hog. Like they will
Yeah.
draw all the attention and eyes away from everything else, and it's kind of, I don't know, their nature, I suppose.
Yeah.
Can't get away from that. Look, when you say Primarch wish fulfillment, I understand. I would like
Yeah.
to have Vulcan come back so I can have him lead my men and live the dream.
Oh yeah.
I'm a big fan of
Yeah.
living the dream with my stories,
Oh yeah.
but as for what it does, I don't really know if even GW knows what they're doing with the story, because I think if they did, Lion would have had some conversation with Gilliman, and I don't think they know what they want to do. I don't
Yeah.
think I think they're afraid to upset the cart, honestly.
Yeah. I. It's for me. It's like I look at it all. And it's like it'll happen eventually. For me, it's like for those who want it, more power to them. For me, I still like the idea that 40k is a sandbox. That's where it's at for me. I enjoyed it when there was more focus on the sandbox than a story, because that was essentially the essence of the grim darkness of
Mm-hmm.
40k for me. It was the fact that, like, for example, like there are games that I've played, the adventures I had in 7th edition with Caraxus the Midnight Messiah. No one will ever know about those games apart from me and my opponent. Like, I couldn't even tell you a few of those games. Um, but there was a lot of games that happened, especially against Lamenters. I remember one where my opponent brought Malcolm Phobos, the chapter master for Lamenters,
Yep.
those worlds. I remember with my generic Chaos Lord being Caraxus, actually managing to slay him, and that was a big thing. Like, wow, okay, I didn't expect to do that. Um, Things like that. Vice versa, say there's someone in Australia having a game. We're never going to be privy to that game. We're never going to know the adventure, the story that happened in that game, just like in the 41st millennium, where there are countless undocumented tales, or documented tales that are buried in the Munitorium or buried in the Inquisition, never to be seen again. The idea of grim, dark, in the sense that they are important to us, but in the wider scheme, aren't important at all. Because in the grim darkness of 41st millennium, you're not going to be missed. That the old saying in the
Right.
old blurb back in the 5th edition and such. That's the idea of like the archaic lens where you have to go digging to find your own truth, because through the Imperial or whatever faction codex's propaganda, to read through the novels and see how the propaganda of the codexes compare to the reality of the story of the Black Library novels, stuff like that. But yeah, that's just how I see it. Like I'm not against um I'm not against the story in of itself. People want Primarch's Return, and fair enough, more power to them. I liked it more when I could listen to other people's stories of like their Chaos Lord or their Hive Tyrant or their Space Marine Captain or their Guard Regiment. Listening to their stories of grand adventures against the Xeno hordes or adventures in the Warp Storm.
I'm with you. I think you can have. I think you can have both. Honestly, it's
Oh
just
yeah.
I don't think GW is in any rush to deliver the story, the narrative. I think they're very content to slow roll everything as. Unless they get to a desperation point, which there's no sign of that happening anytime soon, I don't think they'll be fast tracking anything of interest happening. Honestly.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
I thought maybe that's what Dawn of Fire would do. I thought we'd see something building. They kind of positioned it that way, and I was like, still waiting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think
I gotta run here. I'll catch you guys later.
Yeah, no worries. Talk to you later, dude.
You take care.
It is getting later. Probably wrap up in a little while, but
That's fair. No, like I say, like it is purely preference. I enjoy it. I enjoy it more as a sandbox. Some people enjoy it more as a story. More power to them. There's no ill will there. Like everyone's variety is the spice of life. I liked it back then. I think when it comes to a story, they need to have more big meetings like the Siege of Terror. You know how you had all the big writers just come together. I think that needs to happen with current 40k to make it work, because I feel as though a lot of it is the codex, whoever's writing the codexes or the codex law writers are just getting basically free reign to just putting whatever they want in. That's how we got like Vigilus, like something where it needs to be more carefully thought out. I feel to make it feel like it works, like the Siege of Terror.
It's well, the Siege of Terror is like it's a climactic endpoint to a long-running narrative that already existed. So we kind of know where we're going, but I don't think GW has any idea where they're going. No, I don't think they're rushing towards anything. Honestly, I think
just the next batch of models.
Oh yeah, no, honestly, and I think that's fine. That's fine, but it's weird to frame it like this grand narrative is unfolding, but the payoffs we're waiting for don't happen. At least from again like a Dawn of Fire series point of view, it's sort of a nothing burger. I was expecting Lion and Angron type setups to lead out from that series, honestly. And it was just completely like from out of nowhere, Arcs of Omen happens, and it's like, oh, this narrative is occurring now, separate from the in air quotes, the main narrative that they've been building towards in Ninth.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like, I'm like, it's one of those things where it's like, I've said to a few other people, like, can we just have the Imperial Armor writers come back kind of thing to write it? Because I often, I look at, say, Vigilus, for example, and just think, you've got things like the campaign in Vrax, the Siege of Vrax. That, in the grand scheme of things, that is a story that doesn't really matter. It's something that's just, it happened, it went, and it doesn't really make a grand impact on the current state of, or in the grand scale of narrative, makes no difference in the Imperium of Man. Yet for the community, that is a game the Siege of Vrax is something people took so close to their hearts, like Janovich. Like, why are we seeing big open narratives of like documentary styles like Janovich and such, and fan animations of the Vrax, but no one cares about Vigilus. There's you know what I mean? Like, what happened to Vigilus? Well, Calgar got his backside kicked by Abaddon. Great.
Yeah.
And
so I'm not familiar with Vrax, to be completely honest with you. But but for the answer why no one cares about Vigilus is because nothing happened. It was a really cool setup for book one, and nothing sort of happened of consequence.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
you know, like it's
absolutely.
I think that's the biggest issue with Vigil is from a narrative point of view. I
Yeah.
would welcome more campaign like events.
Yes.
I think that's more enjoyable for me than just codexes releasing and then editions
Yeah.
restarting.
Yeah. I kind of just wish, like, they gave like the edition 5 years rather than three. That's all I want. Just 5 year release cycles.
Yep.
Like that's all. I just give the edition space to breathe. But yeah, like I say, it just makes me wonder because I like the like what is it that, like, say, the Imperial Arm books, people still like the other stuff, like the Badab War, which is another.
Mm-hmm.
It does have a bigger impact on the grand scheme of things with the Imperium of Man, but what is the like, you've still got people who have like big Facebook groups like the Badab War recreation societies and such like that. It's still something that people hold dear to them, like the Siege of Rax. People hold that dear to them. People love those stories. Why isn't anyone putting the same love and attention to the current narrative, like Vigilus or the Arcs of Omen? What is the, you know what I mean?
Okay,
What
tell me this. Was the Siege of Rax tied to a product release from Games Workshop or Forge World?
to a degree, yeah, to a degree, because I think that was when they launched the Deathcore Krieg, like properly as the Forge World resin stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's always going to be that tied to it as well. But in terms of like a narrative, it's like in the wider scheme of things, it doesn't really make a difference. And I think there's something different, and I'm trying to, like, the only thing I can really search on is like, it's one of the reasons why I have a Warhammer Plus subscription is to read the stories from Warhammer books that got them on there. Um, because I'm trying, like, I'm doing a lot of like, I feel like I'm going back to university, doing a lot of analytical reading here. It's Yeah, it's like, as Francosus Marion said, a fragmented, consistent, heavily redacted imperial record, official narrative, and is the Grimdark was supposed to have, but uncreative NPCs can't handle it. And okay, I'm not going to read the rest of that, but yeah, like I think like Francosis was hits roughly the nail on the head, where it's like you're reading things and you're kind of like piecing things together as you go along, because certain things are redacted and such and so forth. Your the narrative is given to you, but there are certain parts which you have to have your own lens, your own um, perception of events, kind of thing. Whilst a lot of like the newer lore just feels like, here's a story, bam bam, done. Now on to, like, now on to the next big thing. Like, another good example, Prior Nexus. They launched it in ninth, did nothing with it. 10th edition, Tyrannic War, the fourth Tyrannic War. They're going back to Prior Nexus and still trying to iron that out. It's like, like, why do people like say the Armageddon Wars more than the current stuff? What's the difference between those? You know what I mean? Like,
Well, you
that's what
raise.
I'm.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. It's like, that's what I'm trying to. I guess that's what I'm trying to still find out. Like, what made like things like the Octaris War before the Imperiums put the foot in. Like when it was Orcs versus Tyranids, non-imperial narrative. It was Orc ship troopers. Orcs are the minority. You got the Tyranid bug waves going in. It's a lot of fun. Um, there's things like that. It's like people still look at Octaris with rose-tinted lenses, and like Armageddon. Like, these are big events that have now happened and finished, somewhat. Meanwhile, there's big things happening in, say, like the Prior Nexus, where I honestly feel they're trying to draw the threads along to say, Illuminor Society is basically making Prior units. That's where That's where I feel like it's heading. But you've got this thing where it's like, this is essentially like a null sector of the galaxy now, because there are no psychers there. That's why it's all quiet and such. Why psychers go insane. They're not doing anything with it, and they're trying to iron it out. Meanwhile, now now the Tyranids, Leviathan, and the invasion is now hit. Like everything before the Gathering Storm was meant to be just the scouting parties, the tendrils. Now the main hives are hitting, and Leviathan's hitting from the left side now, not underneath, and it's dangerously close to Terra. Like that is such a monumentally giant side, especially when the Imperium is split in half. There needs, that is that is unapologetically such a big drift. You can't leave that hanging. Like obviously Games Workshop will, because Games Workshop does what it pleases, but that is so big. Like Gullitman has definitely turned his full attention on that tide, because if the turrets get to Terra, that's it. You know what I mean? That's it.
Yeah, they're
If they get, yeah, like that's it. Like that you can't really bounce around that. They've put themselves into a corner like that. Like it's there.
it's just weird. I mean, like you said, they went back to Pariah Nexus, but they're doing it in such a way that's just in keeping. They're trying to apply theme to the seasons of competitive play, right?
Yeah.
10th comes out, Leviathan is in the cinematic, they're in the starter box, and now that's the narrative thread. Like you said, biggest Hive fleet dangers the Imperium's ever faced ever. You right? Gilliman's all hands on deck. This is my priority number one. And now they told us to forget about that and talk about and look at Pariah Nexus from 9th edition, which started there. And so my question to you is, and it's not a test, I'm asking honestly, do we know what is the deal with the Pariah Nexus? What is happening that is so imperative? What's the hook? Like you said, comparing it to these fondly remembered events like Armageddon, right? Or fondly remembered war zones.
Absolutely. I think, absolutely. Like, I think the hook is that when it comes to Pariah Nexus specifically, to answer that question, is there's a hope within the not the Astronomicon, but the psychic, not the Astronomicon, but like how psychers bridge to each other and such to warp travel. They can't go through the Pariah Nexus anymore because there's no psychers. There's absolutely no life. I think what they're trying to do is trying to reintegrate the more eldritch horror aspect and mystique back into Necrons that they had in 3rd edition. Not obviously they're not like putting the old lore back into mainstream, but I think they're trying to get that atmosphere of the mystery of the Necron and the silent terror that comes from them. Because obviously, like I said, when psychics go in, they go crazy because there's no psychic link there. There's nothing to actually like talk in or out of. And that's just because there's so much Necron tech with the Blackstone such just emitting and pushing everything back, basically, and the fact that they've eradicated nearly, if not all life. No, not all life, but they've required like 98% of like the sector's population is gone, kind of thing. There's like a few struggling survivors in like a Terminator 2 Judgment Day Salvation sort of like atmosphere where they're all just trying to get by and find something to work. I think they're trying to do that, and like I said before, I think one of the main things that they're going to probably do, and they're probably going to hold this off as long as possible whilst they update the rest of the range, but I think at some point they will reintroduce the Pariah's old lore, where it is like they are like Illuminor Caesar's is specifically trying to test for humans, but he's trying to test for who's a psychic blank, like Knowles, like Sister Silence and such. I think he's trying to do that and then trying to input like the essence of that individual into a Necron body, so it makes an extra unit, being the Pariah, that can directly counter the forces of chaos. Because I think, like, the Silent Kings came back, he's tried to warn everyone of the Tyranid Menace, and the galaxy's in half. There's 2 big forces that needs to be dealt with. If he can silence them both, because the idea is that like there's some sort of super weapon on Pariah Nexus that's going to wipe out all organic life in the galaxy, which is great if you want to get rid of Tyranids. Not so great for the other factions like the Imperium of Man, the Votan, and the Tau and such. So the Imperium of Man's trying to stop that. But I think there's also the fact that because of the infighting that's now been added to the current law, which is that there's been a bit of a coup between Emotech and the Silent King. I think they're trying to really muddy the waters there a bit, but also trying to, at the end of it, once they've redone the Nightbringer, the Deceiver, got all the resin stuff into plastic kind of thing, they will bring back the Pariah unit. I think that's where it's all leading to. I think the Necrons will be beaten. The Silent King will be beaten in the terms of trying to make that super weapon that destroys all organic life. But to compensate, they will have the Pariah unit, because, excuse me, I don't think the what do you call it? I don't think the Necrons are above converting other races into Necrons. They'll just be warrior automations. So the idea of getting basically a null or a psychic blank into a Necron body and just carting it off into a demon world and just going, right, I'm switching you off. Get back into the warp hole. There you go.
No, I could see that happening here. It's plausible. I think it's a plausible situation. I don't know if it's hard to say if they'll get pariahs or not. I don't know. For me, that hook is not that. It's not as compelling as the Armageddon Warzone. Something about it. I don't know. Is it just nostalgia? I don't know. But I want to think
exactly.
about it.
It's something like it's something that I've been thinking about. Like, I think another point is like time investment and age. Obviously, the Pariah Nexus, like they're trying to not reboot the formula, but basically trying to refresh it. So, Armageddon, Vrax, since their release in like the late 90s to the mid 2000s, like they've had time to mature. They've had time where people have grown attached to the level of detail of these like settings and such. People have invested a lot because they've also played campaigns in, say, like when older, more veteran players, probably older than me, will probably remember like Armageddon campaigns in the local games workshop and such. They remember like the Sunday beginners groups where the games workshop people would get them all to scream war as loud as they could and such, and scream the entire place down and such. They have fond memories and obviously nostalgia lenses, but because they've invested so much time to researching like Armageddon, like things like Hell's Reach hit different because there's a lot of detail to the lore, and it's in the setting, the fight for Armageddon, craft and mold the characters, not the other way around. Like Hell's Reach is the pinnacle of this. Hades Hive molds Grimaldus into who he is today. He goes from being a little bit too on guard and up his own backside to being much more humbler chaplain kind of thing at the end of the book. It's a story of a character arc kind of thing. Beautiful storytelling, and I think a lot of people have their own investments. They have their own characters who have fought at Armageddon. They've got their own Space Marine captains. They've got their own tactical squads that may have had shot the rear armor of a Death Dread and make it blow up with a bolt gun and such and so forth. Stuff like that. People have fond memories, and with that goes a lot of investment in reading the lore and such, having things side by side. It's not just a story. It's also got in-game, like real-life experiences, because people have played on the set and on this campaign. They've played on the Wastes of Armageddon. They've played in Hades Hive. They're trying to do the same Pariah Nexus, but Pariah Nexus and the current narratives, outside of the ones that end in edition, like Gathering Storm and Arcs of Omen and such, things like Vigilus, things like Pariah Nexus, things like the Fourth Tyrannic War, they're trying to set that up for a current generation. I think that's eventually, hopefully, will, as the years go by, it may have the same domino effect. But right now, because it's so fresh and because it's so new, it doesn't really carry any weight. But in addition to that, they also need to put a lot more effort into the amount of detail into these things. Like, I'm pretty sure Necron fans probably appreciate the Fall of Fears, the last Imperial Arm book, a lot more than Prior Nexus, because there was a lot more detail. Like I was reading like in the Warhammer Vault, they don't have the gameplay stuff, but they've got the lore bits, and I've been reading some of that, and there's honestly a lot of good detail in here. You know, it's like every action has consequences. So, you know, you save the fuel refinery, the consequences are you didn't save the reactor field, which means that all the Hive cities are void shields have gone off, which means they are prone to Necron pylon attacks. Such and so forth. Prior Nexus doesn't have that amount of detail, and I think it's, like I was saying before, with the writers need to come back. When it comes to big events, like things you can't really, like, sidestep, like the fourth Tyrannic War, because, like I say, the turrets reach Terra, that's it, and they're dangerously close to Terra now. The Prior Nexus, they need to assemble their best writers. They need to come down and figure out a narrative with a few Games Workshop executives, because obviously they need to barge in and say, right, we want the latest model releases here, here, and here. How can we craft that into a story? And then weave that in. But that's me talking as a fan and not as someone who's worked in the business. So, well, I could say could just go completely out the window.
No, I mean, I appreciate what you've shared regardless of that, like, that's, like, unquantifiable. I get what you're trying to say. It's, I don't know, the current narrative, I also don't feel like I can judge it fairly, because I don't play Crusade. Like, that's the most good faith...
Yeah.
Evaluation you could do is if you're playing Crusade, you're getting you played the Leviathan Crusade pack, you're currently going through the Pariah Crusade pack, and you're giving it a real honest go. Maybe there's something there, and I don't want to. Well, I hesitate. Like, it's hard not to just be pessimistic towards GW sometimes.
No, absolutely.
But
like
maybe
no,
there is something
yeah.
satisfying narratively in Pariah Crusade, but Crusade asks too much of me. I can't. And of my play
I'm with
group,
you there.
I can't
I'm
get it to happen.
I'm 100% with you there. Like the problem with like all these campaign books and such has always been the same. Like from older editions, it's like D&D. You've got to have dedicated players who are willing to basically like invest the time. And when one doesn't show up, the domino effects happens, and it doesn't happen. I'm totally with you there. Like, I would love to give Crusade a try. I don't feel comfortable doing Crusade with pickup games because I've had a few pickup games now in 10th because my current friendship group, great people. Sometimes some of them aren't as reliable as I'd like them to be. So I'm like, right, here's my options. Do pickup games or do this, so I'd choose more pickup games because it's more reliable. I wouldn't, like, with my friends, I would absolutely love to do a Crusade campaign with them. I'd love to, like, you know, really feel it and have like things like Crimson Fists and such, because Crimson Fists are cool, but I like my Black Templars too much, but you get what I mean. I'd love to do, like, I would love to have a new campaign book where it grabs my attention, goes, you know what, I want to start a faction just for that campaign, because that could be quite fun. But I think there's that, and there's also the fact that, like you were saying before, with the mechanics of 10th edition, even though it's more simplified, there's still a lot of moving parts, especially for certain detachments or sub-factions. Like, I'm still getting around the fact that it's not necessarily the fact that there's a lot of information taken, but it's the specific timings of when things happen, and I'm still a little bit slow on that. If I'm slow on the basic core rules or my faction rules to get the timings right, and you're going to add more rules that are probably going to require more timings.
Yeah, it's the Crusade.
Yeah.
I had this conversation with a buddy of mine because he's been out of 10th edition for a little bit. He's coming back, and he was asking me, 1,000 Suns or World Eaters, because he has those two armies to play. And I told him, like, if you're getting back in, I would play World Eaters, because I think 1,000 Suns has the same problem you're describing. It's a bandwidth floor that's required. It's a higher bandwidth floor that's required, like a memory bandwidth is what I mean. And Crusade is just more of that. It's more things you have to be mindful of, especially game to game, which is Not something I really need. I'm okay having my units be the same as I go game to game, right? I just want the narrative options like a chapter master, right?
Yeah.
But well, yeah, just coming past 8 p.m. where I am, so I am looking to
That's
wrap things up with you, Warpforge,
fair.
if that's cool with
It's
you.
2 minutes. It's 2 minutes past 1 in the morning here. I just
Oh
got
wow.
lost in competition.
Well, well, I appreciate the conversation, and it was nice
No
to
worries.
hobby along with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was great. It was great to be on and just to talk. I know it's like it's the first time we've spoke kind of in voice to voice kind of thing, so it's quite nice to do that. I know I can talk a lot. I can get on my I can get on my TED talk. I know.
No, it's all good. I'm happy I caught it in chat honestly, because or else I would feel bad if I just was streaming, and you were saying you're in chat. Yeah, I'll try and do these kinds of things with members more regularly. But yeah, this is. And I'm not trying to obligate you either, but
No worries. No
I'm
worries.
all
Absolutely.
I'm all for it. I appreciate the company. But anyways, I
No
will
worries.
bid you farewell, and I'll talk to you later.
Yeah. Take care.
Take care. See ya.
Enjoy talking. See you later.
Okie dokie, chat. What an unexpected series of events. But the chapter champion is certainly table ready. A bit more edge highlighting to do, and I gotta put some basing material on here. But I think he's looking pretty good. As for tomorrow, probably we'll have another solo. Well, not another. What's on the plan for tomorrow is another hobby stream because I do want to get this guy done. Whoops. Let's put him down. I do have the other remnants of the chapter command, which I have to get some greens on, and I need to fix up some of the edge highlighting on him. So, yeah, we'll do some green painting solo streaming with chat as per the usual format. But you know me, I like to get experimental. Anyways, that champion looks amazing. Thanks, Warpforge. Thank you. Anyways, I have the new and improved Wall of Honor here. Oh, here, let me transition professionally to this outro screen. Thanks to everyone who tuned into the stream, hung out, shared in the hobby camaraderie, and we'll be back probably tomorrow with another Hobby Hang stream. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll